So over the last 2 weeks, I discussed two important topics that have been well received, at least by the viewership. The first one was 2 weeks ago when I asked in the video that we tropical Africans, when we go through education, which is usually colonial education, are we just schooled or we also get our minds developed? Because those are not the same thing. And in my view, many of us are schooled and we get through all levels of education, but our minds are never developed. And then last weekend, I published, I hope if you listen to this video and you like the content, check out last week's video where I had a conversation with a young software engineer from Uganda, and we had an open discussion about what it means to have a mind as an African, or what is the African mind in the modern world. And that was a very impromptu discussion. So basically, we never prepared or structured it, but it's been well received also. And so this week, I want to extend these two topics, schooled, whether you're schooled or you develop your mind, and then the nature of the African mind. I want to extrapolate and specifically handle one topic or one angle of this debate, which is what I've called in my books the African elite dilemma. If you read my book, Beyond the Fourth Heritage, I define the African elite dilemma as the reality which befalls we tropical Africans, in that the more we get educated, the higher we go in education and modernity, the more we are cut off from our roots which are tribal and oral. And so I came about this dilemma, this question, when I moved from Africa to the US. And just before I went to university, I realized I was so in deep with studies and education and all that stuff. And then it just hit me, what does this all mean? Because literally everything we study as tropical Africans is in a language that is European, and most of the subjects are also Europeans, and most of the authorities are also non-Africans. So at some point you ask, is this it? Should I continue on this journey? And I call it a dilemma because the fact is, it's not easy to answer. Like many of us maybe don't ask that question. So we get educated, we get degrees, we start working and get big jobs, and we live ever happy after. Yeah? Or some of us don't get a chance to go very far in education, so maybe we stay in our village, in our town, and it's very easy to resort back to oral living and tribal expectations. But the majority of us, especially if you go out of Africa or if you're in a big city, the dilemma is, how do you reconcile? How do you say, I am authentically this ethnicity, but then you spend your whole life studying in English or French, and you get all these sophisticated theories and concepts and written ideas from Europe? How do you reconcile to stay sober and not emotive, not reject modernity or aspects that you get through the colonial languages, not reject it just because it is colonial, but also maybe not to go back to say, I want to live 100% as my pre-colonial ancestors. And it is not an easy thing psychologically, mentally. If you ask, if you probe, if you inquire about this dilemma, it's not an easy way. It's not an easy thing to reconcile. And personally, and you can tell me if it's just me, Personally, I felt a big mental psychological unease when I asked that question as a 19, 20-year-old African kid living in the US. I felt very, very big sense of who am I, and as a Ugandan, as an African, as so who am I if I haven't spoken my tribal language in 11 years? Am I still that person, or I've become something else? I've become American, or I've become whatever it is. And it was not easy to get an answer, but I remember there's a famous American. If I'm speaking too much about American stuff, the fact is, I spent more than 13 years living in the US. So I came of age in the US, and most of my experience, even if born in Africa, most of my experience of becoming my own person happened in the US. So in the US, there's this famous investor who famously said that the best way to predict the future is to create it. And I remember when I read that quote, I was like, it really makes sense. And so, in regard to this elite dilemma, whether we become Western or we stay tribal, the fact is, maybe you and me, we just create the future, we just create whatever we want it to be. And that is why I created the fourth heritage. I've not read anything that proposes in a non-political way, that proposes how we can structure our identity and worldview and mindset. I could not find an answer. And that is why I created the fourth heritage framework. And basically, in order to heal the African elite dilemma, at least in my head, because I was getting, I think, a second degree and all kinds of advanced studies. And I was like, yeah, but I'm still authentically my ancestors' progeny, you know? It's not that I've become European or American just because I have this education. Anyway, so with the fourth heritage, I looked at the elite dilemma, and I said, it comes from the fact that we have our traditional heritage, and then there's this colonial heritage, and in the middle there, the aspects of belief, which are usually the religious stuff, whether Islamic or Christianity. So we have these three things. And if you have a dilemma swinging from the extreme of should I be oral or should I become European or modern or whatever, and then in between there is what you believe, if you're swinging there, you might end up in an existential state where you are perturbed, whereby you shallow your existence because you don't go deep in any of those three. And that's what many people do. They don't go really deep into their traditional existence. Yeah? They stop doing things, but they also don't go deep into the modernity that the European language and education is giving us, and even the religious. Some of them may not. So you could end up shallowing your existence if you keep swinging between should I be this or should I be this. So my view of how we can stamp and deepen our roots is by realizing the fact that there is something good that we can get from the colonial experience. So, for example, I'm speaking to you in English. I don't know any other language in a literate sense. I cannot write in my mother tongue. So, there are things with good or usable we can pick from the colonial. There are things usable or good that we can pick from the traditional, from, as we know, our sense of humanity from a traditional sense, it cannot be read about in any book, but we know who we are. And so that sense of humanity, that's a positive. So you can hold on to that. And anyway, so the fourth heritage is my way of proposing a set of techniques and frameworks whereby if you are a tropical African going through education, especially if you are of a young age, because that's when you can change, that's when you can bring forth different assumptions. There is a way we can avoid that elite dilemma, such that we can continue reading and writing and advancing in the literate world, but doing it from the point of view that references our heritage, our tribal, our traditional, like our ancestral existence. There is a way we can do it. And the way to do that has to be sober-minded. It cannot be political. The problem is when people get so political about this issue of colonialism and the politics says colonial legacy is bad, but then the education keeps the colonial language and the colonial system. So there's something off about the politics. But anyway, if you keep away the politics, then you can fight and you can overcome that dilemma. I personally think through embracing these assumptions and guidelines and techniques I've proposed in the Fourth Heritage framework, which you can find in my two books, The Fourth Heritage and Beyond the Fourth Heritage. You can buy them on Amazon. I think if you can do that, find what is positive, then you can plant your deep roots, deeper than whatever colonial legacy could have given you, whatever your tribal oral heritage could have given you. You can plant your roots deep, based on writing and reading and understanding your ancestral heritage, and you reference it, but you keep being sober-minded and modern and literate, and you can articulate who you are without just saying we were colonized or we left the tribe. Or the fact is, we have to find the language and the structure and the worldview that can articulate who we are as tropical Africans who are modern. We are not our ancestors anymore. And that is the battle that the Fourth Heritage program is trying to do. And it's a personal battle. If you read anything, Fourth Heritage, it is not collectivist. It's not about groups of people. The Fourth Heritage is speaking to a mind, an individual who is of tropical African heritage and knows the tribal oral heritage as part of who he is, but has the colonial heritage also in terms of language and countries. And of course, the religious thing is in the middle. If you are an individual from that background, then I'm speaking to you. The Fourth Heritage is speaking to you. Are you going through that elite dilemma or not? If you don't have a dilemma, the Fourth Heritage is not for you. But if you have any dilemma about how to reconcile things that don't work within the triple heritages, then I think, at least at the best of my, as good as my mind could propose, I think the Fourth Heritage framework is one thing that can help you get on that journey of reconciling what works and what doesn't work, so that you can solve the elite dilemma that many of us educated Africans experience. Whether you call it elite dilemma or not, the fact is we exude it. We exude it in the way we are, in the way we talk, in the way we behave, in the way we do our business, and everything else that we do in the modern world. So, in short, yes, educated tropical Africans, the more educated, the more advanced we get in the world, the more we are cut off from our oral tribal heritage. And that may be good, that may not be good, but the fact is it creates a dilemma. And if you ever find yourself in any way feeling that dilemma, please check out the Fourth Heritage Framework and let me know what you think. Thank you very much.